So that's the first half, but since our shoe is not symmetric, we're going to copy this to the other side. We're just going to create another sketch and start going at it from the other direction. Modifying our profile to match the second half. We're going to extrude each half separately. Do the other side. Do all the trims that I had on the other side on this side too. I didn't really do this side right because it doesn't quite match the other half, but oh well. I'm just going to add some fillets to the top edges of these surfaces. And now we're going to trim out the center section of our reference geometry and use that to trim out. So this is most of the way done, but what I want to do is I want to merge and loft from one side of these to the other, so this is one surface. That way when I create the sweep that goes around here, it goes around the whole thing, not just half. There was some bad geometry at the bottom, so I just trimmed it off because I was lazy. Creating a plane along the path, sketching on that surface. Initially I was actually going to create real stitches and create a pattern along the path, but it ended up not quite liking it and crashing the computer, so I just said screw it and swept along the whole entire path. And that's pretty much the end of the model. There's some other things we can do, which I'll show you in a minute here, but here's our entire thing. We're going to delete all of our reference geometry at the end, just so it makes a cleaner file. I can add some materiality to it. And then if we want, we can go into render mode and render this guy in Fusion. I'm not a particular fan of the render quality of Fusion, but we can if we want to. In a minute here I'll show you how to bring this guy into a external renderer, get a little bit higher quality renders out of it. And just really quick, I'm going to show you a couple things that you might want to do with this model. I'm just going to create an offset plane from the side view, and then you can create a mirror to the other side, so you can have a left and a right shoe. That's one thing you can do with it. You can right click and you can export any of these bodies as an STL file. You can also export OBJ files from Fusion, but it's a little bit tricky. You have to go into base feature and then convert the solid body into a mesh, and then the OBJ export option will be available to you. You can also create a quick photo studio by creating a ground plane and then creating a back surface and then filleting that to become an infinity plane. Make sure this is curvature continuous, otherwise when you render you're going to see a curvature break. Now I'm just creating a couple large planes to be used as softbox lights for the studio. Move these around into position wherever you want them. You can extend this guy out a little bit, and there we have our studio. So now I'm going to export all of these bodies, and since I'm using Octane I need to export OBJ files, but I find the easiest way to do that is actually to export STL files through Mesh Mixer and use Mesh Mixer to create OBJ files. If you want to export a solid or surface file, you can just export a SAT or a step file very easily. You can also, if you have programs like 3D Studio Max, you can bring in the entire scene into that with just one file, rather than what I'm doing here, which is creating each individual file for each part. So that's all of our parts, and now we're just going to bring these guys into Octane. Just going to link these guys up into a single scene, and after we put some ugly textures on there, we have our final shoe.